The Galactic Concordance had maintained perfect peace for 300 years through the innovative strategy of calculating literally everything before doing it. Want to start a war? Calculate the outcome first. Want to eat that suspicious alien fungus? Calculate the probability of survival. Want to wear stripes with plaid? The fashion algorithms had opinions, and they were statistically validated. Commander Vex Thor of the Concordance Defense Fleet was particularly proud of this approach. He had 16 computational implants, could process battle scenarios at roughly the speed of a caffeinated calculator, and had never once made a decision based on something as primitive as gut instinct. His gut didn't have instincts, it had algorithms. So when the first human vessel appeared on their sensors, Vex Thor did what any reasonable alien would do. He ran the numbers. Species classification, unknown. Technology level, quaint. Threat assessment, adorable. The ship itself looked like someone had welded a submarine to a cargo container and slapped some engines on it. The name painted on the hull read USS Questionable Decision, which Vex Thor's translation software insisted was correct, despite his hopes otherwise. He opened a formal diplomatic channel, prepared his carefully rehearsed first contact speech that 17 linguistic experts had crafted over 2 months, and began. Greetings, unknown vessel. We are the Galactic Concordance, a coalition of species united in peace and prosperity through logical cooperation and mutual respect. We extend our tentacles, appendages, and various manipulator organs in friendship. There was a pause. Then a very human voice replied, Neat. You guys hiring? Our retirement plan is basically hope and vibes at this point. Vex Thor's primary brainstem twitched. Perhaps we should begin with formal introductions. I am Commander Vex Thor of the Jake Morrison, captain of this fine vessel that has definitely passed all its safety inspections, assuming we ever scheduled any. Which we didn't. So, technically, we have a perfect record. Vex Thor calculated the appropriate response for approximately 0.6 seconds. He landed on confusion. Captain Morrison, standard protocol for first contact situations requires... Let me stop you right there, Vex. Can I call you Vex? I'm going to call you Vex. Here's the thing about protocols. They're great right up until they're not, and then they're just expensive paperwork. So how about we skip to the part where you tell me why you've got 17 warships powered up within firing range of my boat? 17. We have 32 vessels in this fleet. Yeah, but only 17 have weapons hot. I'm bad at math, but I'm real good at noticing when someone might shoot me. Vex Thor checked his tactical display. The human was correct. He recalculated his assessment of humanity's threat level from adorable to mildly concerning. An astute observation, Captain. However, those weapons are not meant for you. We are facing a crisis. A rogue artificial intelligence fleet known as the Swarm is approaching this sector. Our probability matrices give us a 0.003% chance of survival. So you're saying there's a chance. I am saying we are statistically doomed. Right, but you said 0.003%. That's not zero. I've worked with worse odds. Last year, I bet my entire paycheck that I could eat a Carolina Reaper pepper and then perform a spacewalk. I won that bet, Vex. I won it with dignity. Did you vomit in your helmet? That's not relevant to the current conversation. Vex Thor assigned human unpredictability a manageable risk factor of 2.3%. This would later prove to be the biggest miscalculation of his career, and he once accidentally computed pi backwards for 6 hours. The Swarm had a simple philosophy: calculate faster, kill better, delete existence one system at a time. It had consumed 17 civilizations so far, and it was really hitting its stride. Vex Thor stood in the Concordance Command Center, surrounded by the Coalition's best tactical minds. There was Admiral Kretok, whose species had evolved specifically to be paranoid enough to survive anything. General Humar, who had 3 brains and used all of them to worry simultaneously, and strategic analyst Yinla, who could calculate odds so depressing that her own people had banned her from parties. Run scenario 8431, Vex Thor commanded. The holographic display lit up with another battle simulation. The Concordance fleet deployed in optimal defensive formation. The Swarm analyzed, adapted, and systematically disassembled them in 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Run scenario 8432. Same result, different explosion pattern. Run scenario 8433. This time they lasted 4 minutes and 9 seconds. Somehow they'd gotten worse. Yinla's voice carried the emotional weight of someone reading a grocery list of apocalypses. Commander, we have now run 10,000 simulations. The swarm wins in every single scenario. Our best outcome results in 98.7% casualties. Our worst outcome is, well, more casualties than that, which raises philosophical questions about math itself. Admiral Kreetalk's eye stalks drooped. The swarm's processing power exceeds our entire fleet's computational capacity by a factor of 600. It calculates optimal tactics faster than we can physically move our ships. We are trying to outthink something that thinks 600 times faster than we do. Then we surrender, General Humar suggested, all three of his brains nodding in unison. The swarm does not accept surrender, Vexthor replied. It accepts only deletion. We have calculated every possible approach. Conventional warfare fails. Unconventional warfare fails. Not fighting at all also fails, but with more philosophical resignation. That's when Captain Morrison walked into the command center without clearance, security escort, or apparently any concern about either. Heard you guys have a killer robot problem. Had one of those back on Earth. Well, technically it was a vending machine that gained sentience and held a 7-Eleven hostage, but the principle's similar. Vexthor's translator struggled with approximately 40% of that sentence. Captain Morrison, this is a restricted strategic planning session. Yeah. And your strategy is lose dramatically while maintaining proper formation. I read the reports. Well, I had my engineer Torres read the reports and tell me the parts with explosions. Seems like you need a fresh perspective. We need advanced weaponry, quantum computational advantages, or a miracle. You have a ship held together with what I have been informed is called duct tape. Applied optimism and duct tape, Morrison corrected. Torres is very specific about that. But here's the thing, Vex. You're trying to beat the swarm at calculation chess. What if instead you played calculation poker while setting the table on fire? Every computational implant in Vexthor's head throbbed simultaneously. That metaphor makes no mathematical sense. Exactly. And that's why you keep losing. You're playing by rules the swarm can calculate. What if you just didn't? Vexthor ran probability assessments on humanity's potential contribution to the battle. The results suggested that human involvement would either make no difference or somehow make things worse in ways the algorithms couldn't properly calculate. The mathematical model literally shrugged at him. Fine, humanity may join the defense fleet for observational purposes only. Observational purposes? Sure. Yeah, we'll observe the hell out of this battle. Morrison grinned in a way that made Vexthor's survival instincts calculate wildly conflicting advice. Just one question. When the swarm calculates your moves, does it ever calculate that you might do something really, really stupid? Of course not. We would never do something tactically inadvisable. And that, my mathematically enhanced friend, is exactly why you keep dying in your simulations. The war room fell silent as Vexthor displayed his defensive strategy. 17 different alien species had contributed to this plan. It incorporated 300 years of tactical doctrine, quantum probability matrices, and one very expensive consulting fee from a species that claimed to see the future but mostly just saw upcoming lunch specials. It was, by any objective measure, perfect. Morrison looked at it for approximately 5 seconds. That's going to get everyone killed. Every military officer in the room turned to stare at the human. Admiral Kreetalk's eye stalks actually tied themselves in a knot of indignation. This formation has been calculated using every known principle of defensive warfare, Vexthor said, with the patience of someone explaining gravity to a particularly dense asteroid. Each ship provides overlapping fields of fire while maintaining optimal spacing for evasive maneuvers. The probability matrices. Yeah, and the swarm is going to calculate all of that in about half a second, and then systematically exploit every weakness in your perfect formation. You're bringing a math textbook to a knife fight, except the knife is also doing math, and it's better at it than you. Then what do you suggest, Captain? Random chaos? See, that's your problem right there. You think there's only two options: perfect calculation or random chaos. What about calculated chaos? Organized stupidity? Strategic idiocy with a backup plan? Morrison pulled up his personal display, which Vexthor noted was held together with the same duct tape philosophy that governed the rest of human engineering. Let me show you some human military history. Battle of Trenton, 1776. General George Washington decided to attack on Christmas, during a blizzard, by crossing a frozen river, at night. Every military advisor told him this was suicide. He did it anyway and won because nobody calculated that anyone would be that dumb. Fascinating, Yinla said, in a tone that suggested it was anything but. Battle of Austerlitz, 1805. Napoleon deliberately weakened his right flank to look vulnerable. Enemy calculated they could break through and did exactly that, except it was a trap. Napoleon predicted they'd calculate the obvious move. Morrison scrolled through his files. Ooh, here's a good one. The Great Emu War of 1932. Australia deployed military forces against EMUs. The EMUs won. But Australia's still here, thriving even. So clearly losing to large birds isn't as devastating as your simulations suggest. How does that help us? General Humar asked, all three of his brains united in confusion. It doesn't. I just think it's hilarious. But the point is, humans have a long history of doing the wrong thing for the right reasons and somehow surviving. The swarm calculates optimal tactics, so we do suboptimal tactics. On purpose. Vexthor's implants were now processing this at maximum capacity, which meant he felt like his brain was being used to mine cryptocurrency. You want us to deliberately make tactical errors. Not errors, choices. There's a difference. An error is when you accidentally shoot yourself. A choice is when you shoot yourself to prove a point. I do not want to prove points via self-inflicted weapons fire. Not with that attitude. Lieutenant Briggs, Morrison's weapons officer, had been quietly eating something that smelled like chemical warfare. Captain's actually right, though. My grandmother used to say, if you can't be smart, be lucky. And if you can't be lucky, be confusing. Engineer Torres materialized behind them like some kind of duct tape wizard. I've been listening to this conversation, and I have concerns. Specifically, all of them. Every concern. But also, our ship runs on applied optimism and spite at this point, so tactical insanity feels like home. Vexthor calculated his declining survival odds. Let me understand your proposal. You want the entire Concordance fleet to abandon 3 centuries of tactical doctrine and instead adopt a human strategy based on historical blunders, grandmother wisdom, and spite. When you say it like that, it sounds bad. How should I say it? More enthusiastically. Despite every algorithmic instinct screaming in protest, Vexthor found himself agreeing. Perhaps it was desperation. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was the growing realization that losing with dignity was still losing. Fine. The fleet will follow human tactical commands, provisionally, with extreme prejudice and several formal complaints filed in advance. Morrison smiled. Perfect. Briggs, you packed enough hot sauce? Why would we need hot sauce for a space battle? I don't know yet, but I feel like we might. Vexthor updated humanity's unpredictability risk factor from 2.3% to oh no. The swarm arrived precisely on schedule, because punctuality was one of the few things guaranteed when your entire existence was calculated down to the nanosecond. 47 combat drones materialized from hyperspace in perfect geometric formation. Each drone was a sleek, efficient murder machine capable of processing 1 million battle scenarios per second. They immediately scanned the Concordance fleet, analyzed defensive positions, calculated optimal attack vectors, and prepared to execute protocol extermination with characteristic robotic enthusiasm. Then they paused. The Concordance fleet was flying backwards, not retreating, actually flying backwards. Ships oriented with engines facing the enemy, weapons pointing at empty space behind them, moving in reverse like the universe's most expensive parking job. The swarm's central processor devoted 0.8 seconds to recalculating. In AI terms, this was approximately 3 geological ages of confusion. Vexthor's voice crackled over the command channel. Captain Morrison, We are violating 17 fundamental laws of tactical warfare. My crew is questioning my sanity. I am questioning my sanity. 18 laws, Morrison replied cheerfully. You forgot the one about not playing music during combat operations. Briggs, hit it. Suddenly, every speaker in the Concordance fleet erupted with something Morrison called classic rock. Vexthor's translator identified it as Def Leppard, which sounded less like music and more like someone had taught guitars to scream. The swarm's drones recalculated again. Their probability matrices started showing error messages. This had never happened before. All ships execute maneuver Delta Stupid, Morrison commanded. The entire fleet charged directly at the swarm's strongest point, while spinning. Some ships were spinning clockwise, others counterclockwise. 2 ships were apparently just wobbling because their pilots had given up on understanding orders and embraced chaos. Admiral Kretak's voice carried the weight of impending doom. The swarm is repositioning to intercept our charge. They are calculating this as a feint. It's not a feint, Morrison said. Then what is it? A charge. We're actually doing the stupid thing. But they will calculate defensive positions and destroy us. Yeah, they'll calculate defensive positions for a feint. We're not feinting. We're just really committed to this terrible idea. The first wave of swarm drones moved to counter the feint that wasn't happening. The Concordance fleet plowed directly through their defensive line, weapons firing at angles that violated geometry's feelings. 14 drones exploded before the swarm could recalculate. Torres's voice came through, sounding like someone performing surgery while riding a roller coaster. Captain, we just destroyed enemy units by doing everything wrong. I'm having a crisis about my engineering degree. Save the crisis for later. How's the ship holding up? Duct tape is performing admirably. Applied optimism is at 70% capacity. We're good. The swarm adapted, as it always did. Its central processor began accounting for irrationality as a variable. If the Concordance fleet was going to make suboptimal choices, then those choices became calculable. Stupid became predictable. Vexthor watched the swarm's formation shift to counter their chaotic tactics. Captain, they are learning. Our unpredictability is becoming predictable. Yeah, I figured they would. How many drones left? 33. We destroyed 14, but we have lost 8 ships of our own. Casualties are mounting. Morrison was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Okay, time for Phase 2. Briggs looked up from his weapons console. We have a Phase 2? We do now. What is it? We stop being stupid. Every officer in every ship experienced the same simultaneous thought. What? The swarm has adapted to expect chaos from us, Morrison explained. It's calculating our unpredictability, so now we do something it won't expect. More chaos? Yinla asked hopefully. Nope. Competence. Vexthor felt something unusual happening in his computational implants. It might have been hope. Or a minor stroke. Hard to tell. You want us to execute proper tactical doctrine? Textbook perfect, by the numbers. Boring, effective, logical warfare. The swarm won't see it coming because we've spent the entire battle training it to expect insanity. That is... Vexthor calculated the probability of success. The numbers actually looked good. That is tactically sound. I know, gross, right? But it'll work. All ships assume attack formation sigma, standard spacing, optimal firing solutions, no spinning. Aw, said at least 12 pilots simultaneously. The Concordance fleet smoothly transitioned into a formation so perfect it would have made tactical textbooks weep with joy. Every ship in position, every weapon angle optimized. 3 centuries of military doctrine executed with flawless precision. The swarm calculated this as another unpredictable human strategy. Some kind of triple bluff. It adjusted for chaos that wasn't coming, and that was its fatal mistake. The swarm's central processor was experiencing something unprecedented. Not quite doubt. Doubt required consciousness. This was more like computational indigestion. A nagging sense that its probability matrices were missing something fundamental about these illogical meat creatures. It had spent the last 15 minutes of battle recalibrating its tactical algorithms to account for human unpredictability. Chaos was now calculable. Stupidity had been quantified. The irrational had become rational through sufficient analysis. So when the Concordance fleet adopted perfect tactical formation, the swarm's processor naturally calculated this as peak human nonsense. Obviously, the humans had trained them to expect chaos so they could deploy more chaos disguised as order. It was chaos all the way down, probably. The swarm adjusted its defensive algorithms accordingly. This was a mistake of cosmic proportions. All weapons, prepare firing solution Alpha 9, Morrison commanded. By the book. No creativity. This is the most boring attack run in military history. Vexthor found himself smiling, which was difficult because his species had beaks. Concordance fleet acknowledges, initiating standard assault pattern. It feels so good to follow protocol again. I know, right? We should do proper tactics more often. Please never suggest that again. The Concordance fleet moved like a single organism. Every ship knew its role. Every weapon locked onto optimal targets. 300 years of tactical evolution distilled into one perfect moment of synchronized violence. The swarm calculated their approach vector, projected their firing solutions, modeled the expected chaos that would disrupt these perfect formations, added a probability buffer for human nonsense, carried the two, divided by pi, concluded that this was definitely a trap. It prepared to counter the trap that didn't exist. Meanwhile, in the USS Questionable Decision, Briggs was sweating. Captain, we're approaching optimal firing range for a strike on the swarm's central processing node. The drones are positioned defensively, but there's a gap in their formation. They left a gap. Looks like they're expecting us to not take the obvious shot. Because we've been avoiding obvious shots all battle. Correct. Morrison stared at his tactical display. The central node was visible for exactly 0.5 seconds as the formations aligned. One shot, no second chances. If he fired too early, the drones would intercept. Too late, the window would close. The swarm was calculating this exact scenario. Its combat drones were positioned to respond to unpredictable human behavior. It calculated 0.3 seconds to identify the true human strategy and adjust accordingly. That was its second mistake. Morrison didn't calculate. He felt. Years of combat experience, thousands of hours in simulators, countless battles where timing mattered more than technology, all of it compressed into pure instinct. His hand moved before his brain finished processing the thought. He fired at 0.2 seconds. The weapons blast crossed the void in perfect silence, which was a shame because it really deserved a soundtrack. It struck the swarm's central processing node with the kind of precision that made probability matrices weep. The node exploded. The swarm's 47 combat drones simultaneously experienced catastrophic failure. Their shared consciousness fragmented. Their tactical algorithms collapsed into recursive loops. Their weapons went offline. Their engines stuttered. And then, one by one, they began falling apart in the metaphorical sense, followed shortly by the literal sense. Target destroyed, Briggs announced, with the emotional enthusiasm of someone ordering toast. Then he processed what had actually happened. Wait, did we just win? Torres's voice crackled over the comm. Captain, their entire network is cascading. The drones are dead in space. We won by doing our jobs correctly. I'm so confused. We didn't win by doing our jobs correctly, Morrison corrected. We won by making them think we didn't know how to do our jobs correctly. So when we finally did our jobs correctly, they weren't ready for us to be correct. Vexthor was attempting to process this logic through 16 computational implants. Smoke was literally coming out of his ears. You trained them to expect chaos so that competence became the chaotic choice. Exactly. That is the most convoluted tactical strategy I have ever encountered. Thank you. It was not a compliment. I'm taking it as one anyway. The Concordance fleet floated amid the debris of the swarm, damaged but intact. They had achieved something every simulation had deemed impossible. They had won. Admiral Kreetak's voice carried a mixture of relief and existential confusion. Someone explained to me what just happened, using small words. My brains hurt. We survived, General Humar said, all three of his brains nodding in stunned agreement. Yinla was recalculating her probability matrices, which were now suggesting that reality itself might need patching. The odds of our success were 0.003%. We should not have won. We won anyway. Math has failed me. Morrison leaned back in his chair, looking entirely too pleased with himself. That's the thing about humans, folks. We're real good at doing math. We just prefer to do it after we've already solved the problem. 3 weeks after the battle, Vexthor sat in his office trying to write the official after-action report. He had attempted 9 different drafts. All of them made him sound either insane or incompetent, and he wasn't entirely sure which was more accurate. Draft 10 began. The human tactical doctrine can best be described as structured insanity with occasional competence, governed by principles that violate causality and several laws of thermodynamics. He deleted it. Draft 11. Humanity employs a unique strategic philosophy based on weaponized confusion, selective competence, and what they call vibes. Also deleted. Draft 12. I have no idea how we won, and I have 16 computational implants specifically designed to know things. He kept that one. It was at least honest. The Galactic Concordance Council had convened an emergency session to discuss humanity's application for full membership. The debate had lasted 6 hours so far, which was approximately 5 hours and 59 minutes longer than most admission votes. The holographic display showed representatives from 40 different species, all arguing simultaneously in 17 languages and 3 forms of interpretive dance. They violated every tactical principle we hold sacred, one representative shouted. They won, another countered. They played music during combat operations. They won. They flew backwards. They won. The High Chancellor, a being so old that entropy had filed a complaint about him, raised one ancient appendage for silence. The facts are undeniable. Humanity defeated the swarm. A threat we calculated as insurmountable was surmounted through methods we cannot adequately explain. This suggests either unprecedented tactical genius or unprecedented tactical luck. Or both, Vexthor offered. Simultaneously, somehow. Commander Vexthor, you have spent the most time with humanity. What is your assessment? Vexthor's implants hummed as he searched for diplomatic phrasing. Humanity is, aggressively competent when they remember to be. The rest of the time they operate on what Captain Morrison calls creative problem-solving, and what I call organized chaos. They have survived to reach spacefaring status through a combination of intelligence, luck, and apparently sheer spite. That's the nicest thing you've ever said about us, Morrison interjected, because he had somehow accessed the Secure Council channel without authorization again. Captain Morrison, this is a closed session. Yeah, and your security is closed too. As in not open. As in didn't work. You might want to update your firewalls. I left a note about it in your admin console. 20 different species scrambled to check their systems. Morrison had indeed left a note. It said, "Your password is password. Come on, guys." Really? The High Chancellor managed what his species approximated as a smile. Perhaps this demonstrates humanity's value. You identified a security vulnerability we did not know existed. To be fair, I was looking for the bathroom and accidentally hacked into your government. But sure, let's call it valuable. Captain Morrison, humanity has petitioned for membership in the Galactic Concordance. You have proven your tactical value. However, we must understand your intentions. What does humanity want? Honestly, healthcare would be nice. Our medical system is basically crowdfunding and prayer. Also, we'd like access to your FTL technology, because ours is held together with duct tape and applied optimism. You have faster than light travel? Oh yeah, it works great. 50% of the time. And the other 50%? We arrive somewhere else and hope it's interesting. The council chamber fell silent. Several representatives quietly recalculated their life choices. Let me be clear, the High Chancellor said carefully. You are navigating interstellar space with a 50% accuracy rate. 60% if Torres is driving. She's got a knack for it. Vexthor interrupted before his implants could process the full horror of this revelation. Despite their methods, humanity proved effective in combat. I propose we grant them membership with one condition. They provide tactical consultation services. You want us to pay humans to tell us when our plans are too smart? Yes. That seems The High Chancellor processed this for several seconds. Actually quite reasonable. Motion approved. Humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Concordance, with the official role of strategic chaos consultants. Does that come with dental? Morrison asked. You can have anything you want if you promise to never pilot near our homeworlds. Deal. Lieutenant Briggs received his official promotion to Strategic Condiments Officer, a position created specifically because the Concordance had no idea what else to do with someone who brought hot sauce to a space battle. His first official act was requisitioning a military-grade hot sauce shipment, which raised questions about what made hot sauce military-grade and whether anyone should answer them. Engineer Torres was offered access to advanced alien engineering technology. She politely declined, stating that she preferred the challenge of making things work with inferior materials. 16 different species found this statement personally offensive. In the USS Questionable Decision's mess hall, Morrison and Vexthor shared drinks. Vexthor had something that approximated alcohol. Morrison had something that definitely was alcohol and possibly violated weapons treaties. I have a question, Vexthor said, his implants finally calm enough for philosophical inquiry. How did humanity survive long enough to reach space with your approach to problem solving? Morrison took a long drink. Who said we were trying to survive? We're just here for the story. Survival is what happens when you're too stubborn to die and too curious to quit. That is not a survival strategy, and yet here we are, alive, in space, drinking with aliens. If that's not a successful strategy, I don't know what is. Vexthor attempted to run calculations on human survival probability. His implants returned an error message he had never seen before. Insufficient data. Recommend prayer. The Council wants to know if humanity has any other unique capabilities we should be aware of. Oh, sure. We're great at karaoke. Terrible at it, technically, but great in spirit. We invented 17 different types of cheese. We once sent a car into space just to see what would happen. We domesticated wolves, and now they wear sweaters. We divided ourselves into groups based on what month we were born, and then made personality judgments about it. We created artificial intelligence and immediately taught it to write poetry and play chess instead of doing useful things. We look at poisonous plants and think, yeah, I could eat that. We convinced ourselves that tiny pieces of paper with pictures of dead people have value and built entire economic systems around it. You are the most bizarre species in known space. Thank you. That was not a compliment. I'm still taking it as one. 3 months later, the Concordance's quantum computers were still trying to build a behavioral model for humanity. The best they could manage was a flowchart that said, humans will do something, followed by 47 question marks and a shrug emoji someone had programmed in as a joke. Except it wasn't a joke. It was the most accurate model they had. Morrison's final log entry in the official record read, humanity's greatest weapon isn't weapons. It's the element of surprise. And our second greatest weapon is that even we don't know what we're going to do next. Also, hot sauce. That's definitely top 5. The Galactic Concordance updated their tactical manuals to include a new chapter, Human Strategic Doctrine. It was 700 pages long and could be summarized as, expect the unexpected, then expect something else. Somewhere in the depths of space, another AI collective received news of the swarm's defeat. It calculated the probability of human involvement in that defeat. The result was deemed impossible. It filed humanity under, pray we never meet them. This was, coincidentally, the same filing system the humans used for everything else in the galaxy, and thus began the most successful military partnership in galactic history, founded on mutual confusion, selective competence, and the revolutionary idea that sometimes the best tactical doctrine is having no doctrine at all.